You started out in politics very early, at the age of 24. What made you decide to run for office in 1980? Were your parents interested in politics?
Not really, and to tell you the truth, I wasn't really either. And I never really intended to be in politics. What happened was I was back rebuilding this business, or building the business, and something happened in my town that I thought was wrong. The former Windham College, which had gone bankrupt 15 years earlier and had been sitting there rotting into the ground, had been a real focus of people trying to find something to do with this great campus that was in peril. And the Federal Bureau of Prisons decided that they, in their wisdom, would turn that campus into a maximum security federal penitentiary. And I just didn't think that my hometown, that the downtown, that the best use of it would be a federal penitentiary town. So we all got together. We got kind of upset about this idea, like Vermonters do. And Senator Leahy got the Federal Bureau of Prisons to agree to abide by a town meeting style town-wide vote, which the Federal Bureau of Prisons had never done. But they said, you vote yes, we'll come. You vote no, we won't. And they thought for sure we'd vote yes. Well, we got organized. We knocked on doors. We did the things we do in Vermont. Spent a lot of time down in a coffee shop and down at the Sunoco station. And by God, we defeated that thing 95% to 5. It was overwhelming. And when it was over, the select board had very much supported this project. And they felt it was a great idea, and they'd been wined and dined by the Federal Bureau of Prisons down in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And anyway, long and short of it is, a bunch of people came to me and said, you know, you were really helpful in fighting this fight. We got to get someone on that board of select people that is going to make sure that they don't just come back next week. So I ran against one of the folks and beat him. And I have always felt, I ran on the platform that I would try to bring an educational institution back to that campus. Well, this was before the internet. So I picked up the Boston Globe one day, and in it was an article about a little school down in Pride's Crossing, Massachusetts called Landmark School, which is a school for dyslexic kids, which piqued my interest because I am dyslexic. And it said in it that they were thinking about starting a college. So I went and made an appointment to come see the board, which took a couple of months. And I picked up the town manager in my old Toyota, and we drove down there and talked to this kind of stuffy out-of-state board and convinced them to come look at the old campus. And they did, and we put a deal together. We bought the land and helped them make this happen, and we started the first college in the nation for dyslexic kids called Landmark College, which is now a thriving college on that campus. That's the only college in the nation for kids that learn differently, and it's been a tremendous success. The point is, to answer your story, I didn't mean to get into politics. I meant to stop a federal prison. And what I learned from that experience is that political leadership isn't about just saying no. That's really easy. It's about solving really tough problems, and that's what I love to do. So I sort of thought to myself, after 7 years on that board of select people, wow, if I could make some of these things happen that I've done on the select board, I wonder what would happen if I went up to Montpelier and started shaking things up. So I did.
Yeah. You have represented Windham County in the State Senate for 13 years, and during most of that time as President Pro Tem, you have held the highest leadership position in the Senate. Many of our viewers may not know how the legislature operates. Can you tell us about your work as President Pro Tem and maybe some of the high points of your many years in the Senate?
Well, you know, I've seen it both ways. I've been in the minority and in the majority. And when I was elected to the Senate, I was elected to a minority Senate, and a lot of things happened that I disagreed with. So I worked really hard to try to get to the majority. And I actually, my colleagues elected me minority leader, which doesn't mean much in the legislature, by the way, my second term, because we were down to 11 Democrats out of 30, and everyone thought we were going to be in a minority for a long, long time. And I said to them, listen, we're not going to get much policy done here that we believe in because we're in the minority. But I will focus on getting us a majority. And in that 2-year period, we did. We took it from 11 to 16, and they made me Senate President sort of as a reward, I suppose, for having gotten that done and put us back in power. I think the accomplishments that I'm most proud of, even though many of them are controversial, as I look back on my tenure in the Senate, is passing a school funding formula where every community in Vermont has equal access to resources. where it doesn't matter if you're from a wealthy property community or a poor property community, you have equal access to resources. We're the only state in the country that does that. And I know that it's not popular in some places and more popular in others, but it's been a great thing for Vermont and for our schools. The reason I feel so passionately about education and equity and funding, giving everyone an equal shot is, you know, I'm a kid that learns differently. I was the kid who sat there in the 3rd grade and had more difficulty learning how to read when the other kids were figuring it out in 1st and 2nd. And I had this one singular teacher named Claire Oglesby, who was the teacher of the year in subsequent years, and unfortunately she passed away from cancer last year, but wonderful woman, and she believed in me. She believed that I could achieve anything I wanted to achieve, and that single teacher taught me that having equal resources, having the best teachers, and being able to make sure that every Vermont kid has a Claire Oglesby in their life is the difference between success and failure for many of us. And so I was really proud of that achievement of getting that passed. I think that the other big ones for me have been balancing budgets. I don't believe, as boring as it sounds, I don't believe that this state can spend $1 and bring in 50 cents. It just doesn't work. And as a business person, I know that you can't meet your promises, your goals, and your dreams unless you can manage a budget. And that's something that I've really enjoyed doing. I think a third one was the vote on Vermont Yankee, making sure that we retire that plan on schedule in 2012. And also passing marriage equality leading the rest of the nation in passing marriage equality was a great thing for Vermont. So we've done a lot. There's a lot of bills. I won't bore you with them all, but it's been an extraordinary opportunity and privilege to serve in the Senate as Senate President for, well, almost 10 years. I guess I'm the longest serving Democrat in the Senate President's office in the history of Vermont. So I'm proud of that.
Coming from the New York City area, I grew up in the New York City area. I can appreciate what you did for education here in Vermont. In the New York area, some schools are notoriously very bad, where the students don't get educated at all,
right,
just because the people that live in the area don't happen to have enough money to support it. Right. So it's really every child deserves a fair chance.
Absolutely, and you know, this brings up the subject of school funding, but the way we fund education in America, all 50 states, and including Vermont, is crazy. I mean, in a democratic society, your most important obligation is educating your people. I mean, is there any debate about that? If you can't read, write, do arithmetic, and learn about civic issues, you know, where are you, and what kind of civilization are you? Now, to think that we do that with a property tax individually in the states is a pretty nutty idea. Imagine if we decided to fund the military with a property tax, to fund the construction of our roads and bridges so we can get around with a property tax, to fund you know, all of the functions of government with a property tax. So, you know, we're struggling with a pretty tough problem to start with, and therefore everybody's always going to hate their school funding formula because we're choosing a really archaic way to fund schools. If I were President of the United States, which I never will be, I promise, I would say to the American people, we're not funding education with a property tax anymore. We're going to pass an education tax. You're all going to pay it. It's a surcharge on your income tax. The states won't have to compete with each other for these resources. Everyone pays, everybody goes, we have equal funding for our schools, and your property taxes will be used only to fund your local roads and bridges.
That would be much more fair.
It certainly would, and it would improve our schools.
Mm.